thank you for subscribing to Podcast One Premium.
And welcome to Dr. Drew Podcast. Again, those swinging sounds, don't forget to go check them out, volumes 1, 2, and 3 at drdrew.com. Also, check out this Life podcast. If you guys have not found your way to that yet, I think anyone that likes this podcast will really like that one, too. And do click through on the Amazon banner at drdrew.com or at thislifepodcast.com. And be sure to support the products that support this show so we can keep winning the sale of the Corolla Pirate Ship. Welcoming now Psalm Isadora to the program. Their television show is Cougar Club. New episodes Saturday at 7 on Playboy TV. And O Yoga. Tell me about that.
O Yoga is, well, you can guess what the O stands for.
I did not guess to begin with, but now that you mention it, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, Orgasmic Yoga. So
is that something that actually happens during the yoga experience? Or is it a way to enhance yoga that enhances that?
Yeah, well, I came from background in Tantra, and I studied Tantra in India for 9 years.
And when you say Tantra, I did not know we were going to have this conversation, but I'm immediately interested.
Yes.
So when you say Tantra, people immediately think tantric sex. It's a much bigger topic, right?
It is because, it's about energy. So you were saying the O in O Yoga is that directly an orgasm, but really it's about tapping into that sensual energy. In India, they call it Shakti. So learning how to kind of turn on that light switch, and then that energy helps to make you more creative, give you more energy, more positive hormones, and make people feel more confident, happier. So for women, they feel sexier.
Okay, so I want to break this down a bit because I think there's everyone thinks of Sting when they think of tantric sex.
I know,
and I think that's a
someday I'm gonna be at a party and I'll be like, Sting, you've been killing me.
I imagine that.
You're killing me. I spend my whole life explaining that Tantra is not what Sting said.
I imagine that. I've always said that whatever he was saying, it's something different.
It's not true. It's
different.
It's one part of it. So really, again, to understand Tantra is seeing sexual energy as creative energy, and that energy obviously pushes us around and is so much a part of how we live our lives and the choices we make subconsciously.
Right.
And so to be more conscious and mindful of your sexual energy and actually learn how to be healthier with it, you can live longer, you can have better relationships.
Okay, you described why, but how about how?
How? Well, O Yoga.
And is that the primary means?
O Yoga is the system I developed after going to India for 9 years and going to the jungle and places
my understanding is, by
no
the way,
one else is going to want to go.
That a lot of the yoga that's in this country is stateside. It's born here, not in India. It's just sort of a weird rendition of Indian philosophy.
It is, and then there's some purists who wish that the yoga was more sort of religious or still having a lot of the Hindu ideas, and they're like, American yoga is just aerobics. But I think both of those aren't necessarily true to the original spirit of yoga. When I went to India and studied Tantra, it's really older than any of these other religions. Over 5,000 years ago, you see all these images of goddesses and gods, and sexuality was very
crazy
normal.
Temples they have.
Yeah.
Right?
So that was there was a time in human history that sexuality was more normal, and there was less, I think, separation and shame around it, and religion. Because now, I think I grew up really, really religious. And sex was just bad.
What religion?
Christianity, born again, really intense born again Christianity. Northern California. I grew up on a hippie commune cult.
And that was with a fundamentalist Christian point of view?
Yeah, well, so I think...
Where does that?
Well, there was a big movement where a lot of the hippies who'd gone as far as they could in the hippie movement kind of hit a point where they realized they hadn't found the answers they wanted. And so then they became born-again Christians. Even Bob Dylan was a born-again Christian for a little while.
Wow.
And I think in just searching for answers, they're I did a bunch of LSD, and that didn't solve my underlying issues.
Right.
So I think there was a big movement. Something's got to save you. Right.
Oh my God. Let me give more of your particulars out before I forget. It's Psalm Isadora, Psalm just like the biblical Psalms. Isadora, Isadora, yoga.com. Twitter handle is @Psalm Isadora. And again, that television program is 7 p. on Playboy TV on Saturdays. So let's keep going. I'm fascinated by this. Keep going down this path. And so, I always believe that people that are interested in health and subconscious processes and interpersonal relations, we're all talking about the same thing, even though we come at it from different perspectives and use different language. Really, we all end up talking about the same thing.
Right.
So, and by the way, each of these sort of perspectives can be informative for particular individuals. I mean, not everyone speaks the same language, so to speak. So,
right.
you may have an approach that really speaks to somebody, and fantastic. And that's why I want to sort of break it down a little bit. So you've invented this yoga, and what do you think is happening? What's going on when you do that?
A lot of empowerment and healing. So by tapping,
give me I don't want to just story about what's happening. I want you to tell me the mechanisms. I mean, not necessarily the biology, but I mean, what do you have people do, and how does that work, and that kind of thing.
Well, let me give you a little bit more background.
Yes.
I guess why I created it.
Good.
So I grew up on this very religious hippie cult, and it was really extreme. And so I grew up wearing a bonnet and long dresses, and with the idea, you had to cover your body as a woman, or you'd make men sin.
This is a Amish almost.
Almost, but I'm pretty sure the Amish were more organized. Like this was more like, the hippies after a lot of LSD. So it was, a little less organized than the Amish. But we literally were supposed to live like the pioneers. So the log cabin I grew up in had no indoor plumbing, no electricity.
Oh, my God.
So they were very ideal. Like, on paper it looked good. It's
Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I have younger brothers.
How'd they end up?
Changing their names, and nobody stayed in that. Because in my family in particular, there was a lot of trauma. So
Meaning what?
I think my parents were attracted to joining that commune because both of them really struggled with probably mental health issues. Looking back on it now, it's hard, I think, to diagnose your parents, as an adult, but going, well, clearly there were some, big issues. I was molested by my father, and he was an elder in the community.
Oh boy.
And also the pastor of the school.
How old were you when this started happening?
I think my earliest memories were around 5.
Did these people get taken to task?
Well, it was just him, but the way that it was set up, where sexuality was something no one talked about and it was so taboo, when it came out, and it came out that it was a lot of other girls, so my friends. And when that came out, their parents had to make a decision, and it's a very hard decision for any parent to make. So if they had gone to the court systems, they probably thought, then our daughters have to go, be on the stand, and it's going to affect their life more. So they basically just wanted, my father to move. So then we had moved, and it was just, I
so
think.
we could go act out on more kids somewhere else?
I think, again, it's this is a very deep thing. And so sexual abuse is very common.
Very common.
And then the big secret no one wants to talk about is it's often within your own family. And so it's easier to talk about, even to say some bad person did that to kids. But when it's so often a relative or even a parent, it's very difficult, because I don't think we have language to talk about that as a society. Again, it falls in this bucket that no one wants to touch it, and it's something, a lot of people don't want to think about. When I talk about these things, I have a lot of people say, I don't even want to think about that. And it's like, yeah, but we need you to think about to find new answers.
But you need to know that that's how all trauma survivors think of trauma. I've dealt with it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. I've thought about it.
No, I mean, even not the trauma survivors, people outside. So
don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, like I'm a spokesperson for it now. I work with, thousands of people, and especially around sexual abuse, when you bring that up, people are like, oh, I don't want to think about it. I want to think about that happening to my kid. And the conversation stops. And I think what's really important is that we're living in a time where it is starting to come out more in the news, or the Bill Cosby case, and people saying, why did it take these women so long, or 20 years to speak about that? And it's because speaking about it, is hard enough to do. as the victim if it's happened to you. But when you try and talk to people, most people don't even really have the emotional capacity, I think, to think about it. And so I think we have to start finding new solutions and opening up this conversation.
God, I've been talking about it for 20 years. And people, first of all, want to tell you it's not that big a deal. It's not that common.
Yeah, because nobody wants to
All
look.
of my patients have had something like that.
See, and you said all. So the statistic that I know is like 1 in 3. And from my own workshops that now I teach, which is Tantra and women's sexuality, I'll get a show of 50% of the women have had, sexual trauma or either as a child or rape when they're older.
I'm going to bet half of the ones that didn't raise their hand will
and
come to realize they did but didn't think about it.
I was just, or they're sitting there not able to speak because it took me a long time to speak. And I remember sitting places where people would talk about sexual abuse and it felt like there was a hand on my throat.
Well, the people that work with trauma, we call that speechless terror.
It is, yeah. And it's because you feel like you're going to die.
It's dissociation.
And that's in your nervous system.
It's in your body.
Yeah.
So I feel like your approach is to regain your own sexual self.
Yeah.
And B, to reconnect to your body and regulate it. Right?
Yeah, and I mean this is true this is healing and healthy and empowering for all human beings, whether they've had trauma or not, or sexual trauma or not.
Well, but I did a podcast with Alexandra Katahakis, and we were talking about how if you just even come from families that aren't well attuned, you don't connect your body and your emotions well.
Yeah.
And that's pandemic now. It's everywhere. Very few of us have that kind of focused presence with our family because we're all so distracted in our pads and blah, 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 blah. And so, yes, this could be good for everybody to connect to your body. And by the way, yoga, I'm sure you're aware, is really coming in as something that people are using therapeutically as a piece of the therapeutic process.
Yeah, which is amazing because I'm a living, testament to that because growing up with that kind of sexual abuse and everything being a secret, and especially it being in my own family, I kept the secret to protect my father. I didn't want him going to jail. I didn't want terrible things happening to him. So it gets very, confusing because you see their good side and then you see this terrible side. And it's very difficult in your mind to sort through that. Is it a good person? Is it the bad person? Or like you said, if I don't turn him in, is he doing it to other people? But it's my father. And it's a very difficult tug of war. And I struggled, a lot with it.
In addition to hooking back up to your body, the other thing that trauma survivors do is they reenact. You get involved with abusive guys and whatever, or unavailable guys or whatever, or sexual addictions or all this stuff comes up. What do you do with that stuff?
Well, so I had that sexual trauma, and then, it was, like I said, kept that secret for so long and ran away from my religious boarding school at 17 because I finally just thought, there's no answers here. And I was just so unhappy, really. I think looking back on, I was just trying to get away from that kind of abusive environment. But that meant leaving my family behind or feeling abandonment. So I got pregnant on purpose. I was a homeless, high school dropout and got pregnant to have a family, to have that unconditional love. And really, I think to have a reason to stay alive, to have any connection. And
that's
then
a profound statement.
No, I mean, I really did. I remember I would, and I think I understood it then, but then I think I even, having brought, my son into the world with, very little money. And then, of course, how do I take care of him? And then a lot of my 20s, as a single mom, I was drinking and doing drugs to numb my pain, having sex, like not having great relationships and all these addictions. And even when I went to get therapy, I was going to talk therapy, and I would just be so exhausted sometimes that I would just lay in bed in depression and feeling like I'm so broken. And then I'd look at my son, like he'd be like, read me a book. And I'd feel so ashamed and guilty that but I couldn't. I didn't have the bandwidth. I literally didn't have the bandwidth. And this is what happens with trauma is you freeze your emotions, and depression is not an emotion. Anxiety is not an emotion. Those are frozen. I can't feel the actual grief. I live in depression. Where'd you get the freeze metaphor?
Because that's exactly what we do. We actually use a freeze response that lizards use. That's what happens to our body.
Because for me, and what you were saying about the addictions, kind of studying myself, I had to study myself, was realizing you have this, that I had fight, flight, or freeze. And growing up where I was in a constant state of kind of fear, and there was a lot of violence, and then the sexual, because my other parent was very violent. and in total denial of it happening. So it's like, if I'd say anything, it's like, well, you're a liar. And again, I look back on it now and I say, no one had coping skills. People say, how does someone like Cosby's wife sit around and watch this happen? Because for her to admit how terrible it is and probably some sense of feeling guilty she allowed it to happen, she's less likely to go into that, dig into it, than to just deny it. Right? So it's easier to just deny, and everyone's a liar because you don't want to feel your own sense of guilt or, being complicit somehow from your own weakness. Maybe, you're afraid to leave or you...
But it's interesting how you also are empathic towards the broken parent.
How can you not be empathic to a parent?
Well, you could be angry.
I think it's both, and that's why it's I was angry and empathic. And angry that I had to be empathic, I remember, my mom coming into my room after having been, physically hit way too much. And I'd go to bed and she would come in crying and wake me up in the middle of the night and say, I'm so sorry. But even then it's like, now I comfort you.
Right, so now you're responsible for her, yeah.
And I have to say it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Ugh.
I'm okay. I have to tell her, no, it didn't hurt. And no, I'm okay. And so you learn to numb and freeze those things for so long. And then when I, finally ran away and left and created all, those predicated my choices. So then I made choices that made my life harder. So after I left my family that had been abusive, then I started self-choosing a lot of things that kept making these difficulties in my life because, and I see this a lot, you have the original kind of trauma and then the secrecy and isolation and feeling you're broken and different than everybody else. And then you start to have that low self-esteem and then you act out in ways that are self-destructive.
But you magically do it in exactly the same way as the original trauma.
Exactly the same ways. And this, I hit a rock bottom and had to find, new solutions. And through yoga, I started paying attention to what my triggers were and how my body even, I feel like growing up where sometimes you're hit or there's a lot of violence and fear in your home. And then that's the person who says, I love you. I realized at some point where I kept picking dysfunctional and somewhat violent relationships. I was like, because you don't love me until it's that exciting. Because you have to understand there's an addiction to a feeling.
Right, there were three things you put in there. One was the intensity, that you're addicted to the intensity.
Addicted to the intensity because
the other thing is you're attached to the abusive love sort of connection. Love is an abusive person.
Mm-hmm. And then the other one, I think, is that broken record or hamster wheel where some deeper mechanism in myself says, let me recreate that exact same pattern and that my nervous system will feel the same way by being, it's not my mom, but now it's my boyfriend or it's not whatever it is. And that there's an opportunity to change and heal every time that rolls around. But most people will never actually catch that.
Never.
But I did actually start to be able to catch that for myself.
Before you started doing work?
No, that was after. So that's once I found yoga and I found this behavior modification and did something positive with my body. I started to be able to notice that craving, right? And that even the craving for, I think, that excitement that numbs the pain. Because I was always very sexual. So when you've had sexual abuse, you become hyper or hyposexual.
Or back and forth.
Or back and forth. But I was hypersexual. And I remember my first orgasm, I was 5 on a swing set. Oof. And again, looking back at that, it was a very fun experience at the time.
Okay,
so I figured out, I climbed up the pole and now looking back, that was my clitoris. It was, stimulated. And I remember reaching the top and I thought I had to pee, squeeze my legs together and everything exploded into fireworks. And I was like, this is amazing. And then I was like, can I do it again? I was like, I did it again. And then I did that during recess. And looking back on it, I'd probably had my sexuality unlocked again, as a child. So
before your brain's ready.
Before my brain was ready. And what happened was a way to disassociate.
I was going to say, also kids will use orgasm and self-stimulation as a way of regulating.
Yeah, because it's
even separate from sexuality, just as a bodily-based sort of mechanism just to get relief.
Well, and I think looking at it later and understanding, that's where I got fascinated with yoga and deeper than yoga, the Tantra, and understanding the sexual energy and also how it affects the brain functioning is going from a left brain, where I know fear and fight or flight, and to the right brain where it's just total ecstasy. And so I knew how to use that orgasmic state to go right to ecstasy where everything, that numbed the pain. So I think when things
How
are...
do you not do that now?
I practice. I'm much more self-aware, and this is what this is.
Do you still relapse?
I don't know if I would call it relapse in the same way. What the way I measure things is what's the outcome? Like, what are the goals I've set for my life, and am I achieving them? And for me, I've taken a lot of my pain and used it as a way to not only heal myself, but help heal other people.
Which is, interestingly, that's the way most people really get through deep stuff.
Yeah, because...
Be of service.
Yeah, to be of service, because I think there's the really painful place is the why. Somebody's just saying, why did that happen to me? And I still have days where I'll be like, why? Why did that happen? And I try and catch that, though, because I know that the why is an endless spin out into depression. And I go, how? How will I make this better or have some meaning? Like, if I can turn that around and help other people. And I immediately, with that thought process, within 1 or 2 breaths, feel empowered, feel strong. If I stay with the why, I feel like my physical strength like melting. I feel myself, so it's learning to catch my thoughts. And it's learning when the old tapes start playing. And as I become more aware of my mind-body connection, that's helped me a lot. Like even today, knowing that I was going to come and talk about this, every time I talk about it, it's still my family. So there's a level of thinking still, it's like, okay, I'm, speaking the secret that I kept for so long. Because, your family never stops being your family, even though I have different logic. And I ultimately think that this is healing for everyone. I think speaking out about this.
With them? Your family?
No. And that was like, and then there's abuse and abandonment that often happens.
But that's an unfortunate, necessary piece of the healing, I suspect.
Yeah, I think... like I was saying, even today, getting ready to come in, I woke up and then I was really nauseous. And what was fascinating to me about yoga and Tantra is they had this way of looking at the body and the mind-body connection, that there's chakras. And not in some woo-woo, like, oh, chakras, and burn some sage and patchouli. Like, understanding that it's a map and that different areas of your body actually release different hormones that have different psychological effects, and that especially if you trauma, there's been breaking points in that nervous system of where these chakras or these points of developments connect. And so the third chakra, or your stomach, is your sense of self-esteem, self-worth, and like willpower in your like ego, I am. So when somebody else like takes your sexuality or is, trauma that's violent, they take some of your I am, right? It's like literally like you can't feel who you are because that was taken away from you being able to individuate on your own.
Yeah.
And so even today I feel that nauseous feeling. And it's, when you're nervous, if you have a big performance or something, you get butterflies. It's not the butterflies. It's like there's just, when you have a cold and you have to cough up the mucus.
Yeah.
It's like the sludge. And when I was in that mode, I woke up, I'm like, okay, and is what we were saying about how do I work with it now? I'm aware. I was like, okay, there's that feeling. So I don't have to go numb it. I don't have to have a flip out. I don't have to make a new, fight with somebody as a distraction, right? Like do something like to not feel what this is. And so once I became aware of that. People use
drama as a way of not feeling.
Yeah, drama is a great way. I have all this pain inside my skin. Let me get it outside my skin, or let me put some of the poison in me and you, and then I'm not alone even. And so feeling
that.
Do
you still do some of that?
So much less, because this is what I was I felt that, and I was like, I can stay here and lay in bed and cry a lot, or feel my feelings, which on one hand, it's good to feel things and let them go, but then being proactive. And I think you need to deconstruct to feel the feelings and let them go, but reconstruct yourself with something positive that really does make you stronger. So I went to the gym and did my yoga, and doing that, I did glute work, which, makes me feel grounded and strong. And then I did core work, which by the time I was done, the nausea was gone and I could feel my body and feel myself. I was like, oh, I'm me. I am not my trauma. I am not out of control emotions. I am Psalm and I'm here. And oh, wow, what an amazing opportunity to go talk about this, on a platform where other people can find out that there's different ways to heal. Yeah,
I like the way you described it, putting some of my poison in you. I've never really used those words, but it's an excellent metaphor for what people do with something called projective identification. Which
happens a lot when you start on the other end of it. Now that I work with healing other people, sometimes you just feel somebody sitting in there talking to you, and when they aren't, I think, ready to stop, something in them has to break where they want to stop being a victim and do want to heal. And sometimes they just want to use the therapy to talk and talk and talk and just put enough poison in you that they can go on with their day. They're like, I'm at 110% poison, 5 alarm. And then I go to like my therapist and I give them, 15% of it so that I can walk around at 95% again.
How do you switch somebody from that mechanism to a truly healing?
I mean, you can't help anybody who doesn't really want to be helped, because I think there's some inner knowing. It's very
some people just don't know. They really don't know that's what they're doing. And sometimes
no, they don't know. But that's part of I think the kind of neuroses, right?
But I think if we could really pinpoint it for some people, they might be willing to go, oh, I don't mean to be like that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should change this.
Well, I do that by telling my story. So if somebody's like that, I go, look, here was my situation, and until I hit my rock bottom, went through my 20s using drugs, using sex, using everything to try and numb my pain. And at 29, I was in an emergency room, and I was like, I'm going to be dead. And basically, there's a suicidal drive, that I've masked, but I keep putting myself in a situation. And some voice inside me said, you know what, you can't. I keep doing this waiting for my parents to show up. That broken, 5-year-old little girl is sitting here going, but where are my parents? And if I keep putting myself in helpless situations, won't somebody finally come? Because you're starving for that. I didn't, everybody should have that. Everybody should have a parent, I think, that they could feel
Are you
was going
able
to
to have
protect
romantic
them.
relationships now?
I do have romantic relationships.
No, but I mean, do they get encumbered by all that?
I think that it's made me. I don't. Did the chicken or the egg come first? I am happy with how I relate, and right now I'm so, I think, driven with my work.
I guess let me ask you a little different. I didn't ask it in a fair way. Mm-hmm. Are you in close connections with other people such that abandonment feeling gets filled a bit, if not fully?
I think that right now I'm dating a few people, and
isn't that a way of just avoiding ever being abandoned?
I don't think necessarily, but I also don't I feel like my work is way more fascinating to me right now. And when I kind of see that, the abandonment, or that neediness come up, it's not that it's bad, but it's also I don't feel the need to engage in it the way I did when I was younger. Being 40 now, I feel like you're making a funny face.
I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, I get what you're saying, and I'm wondering if it just isn't time to help deal with that. You called it a hunger, which I thought was rather vivid, and I think it's true.
Well, no, it's not that I haven't dealt with it. I think that hunger in my situation. And this is the thing. What I was saying is, I feel every child. I wish I could make a world that every child had a parent who protected them, but we don't live in that world. And if you are a trauma survivor, and especially sexual trauma, you're going to have to be your own hero. Even if you end up in a great relationship and you work through some of that, you have to first you have to pick up that 5-year-old in yourself. I think it's even more important if you have that trauma.
I don't disagree at all, but I'm just thinking about that hunger. For some reason, it's bothering me because I do think you're doing a great job with all that. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering what you do with the hunger because it feels a little threatening.
It maybe it is. You're digging deep, Doctor.
But I'm not saying you should necessarily deal with it because literally may not be
it just
time.
Depends how you deal with it too. So I don't I guess, are you suggesting I should get in a deeper relationship to do that?
I'm wondering.
You're wondering. I also don't necessarily.
It may not be time.
Maybe it's not time.
You know what I mean? It's just
maybe it's not time.
It's who's to say, right?
But also who's to say that the best role play of relationships is a long-term monogamous relationship?
I'm just thinking about the hunger. I'm just thinking about that little girl is still so hungry for that. And
yeah, I think at the stage of healing that I feel like I'm at a lot right now is I reached a point of kind of letting go of a certain dream of that being my parents. And I think that's really important too for trauma survivors.
Sure.
And when I work with people, I recently had a woman in one of my, I had a women's Tantra weekend, and one of the women there showed up saying that she'd had Lyme's disease. And I don't have a stand on it, but I've now worked with many, many people. And when they have something that science can't really identify. And I know because I had ulcers, I had everything, but they were all mysterious. It's like, well, there's no medicine for that, and we don't know what to do with that. It's a cluster of behaviors and emotions and pain that manifest as physical.
I just call it trauma.
Right. So
that's how trauma manifests.
Yeah.
And people want to do anything but deal with the trauma.
Right.
They want to put labels on it and get it fixed.
Well, I think it's trauma, but another very interesting thing in that in particular that I've seen with Lyme's disease is there's almost always another person involved that being sick keeps them close to you.
Absolutely.
Versus other ways of dealing with trauma. You have angry trauma and you have drug abuse trauma. You're going to have all these. But that one is, I need a caretaker.
That's the today's version of it.
Yeah.
There's 20 years ago, it was chronic Epstein-Barr. And then before that, it was something called neurasthenia. And it had different names.
Or chronic fatigue or whatever it is. And so this woman showed up, and in the course of the workshop, and this is where, to me, again, using the body-mind connection and the map of kind of these chakras, we were in that, and she... through working with all these women, and you said, how do I get people? I try and get people to have an aha. And I think I can go to very deeply emotional places with people because I've been there.
Yeah.
You can't walk someone through a fire you haven't been through.
No, because people, the other thing is people won't go unless there's another person
it's
there.
It's true. Who's been to the other side. It's like, you know what? It's because
either been there or knows how to really stay with you as you go through it.
Which is tough because I used to have therapists, and I remember thinking, you're telling me to let go, but you're not. You wouldn't know what to do. If my demons came out in this therapy room, you wouldn't even know
not
what
only
to
that,
do.
Everyone would be destroyed by it. Why would you want that?
Yeah, like,
you don't want that.
The world will not withstand.
No, what you want is tolerable doses of little bits of it trickling out and being re-regulated and reintegrated and stuff.
Right.
I love what you're doing because I'm telling you, this is the
but this woman, so the breakthrough that she had, she's sitting there, and we go, and we're dealing with their sexual energy. So I'm talking about, let's go to the root. I call it your sex root. What were the attitudes of your family around it? How's that affected all your relationships and even just your own energy and how you treat your body? And this woman, we got to her, she'd been molested by her father and her grandfather, and her mother had never wanted to talk about it.
Right.
And she said, I'm about to go on this big healing journey. She didn't talk to her mom for many, many years. And her mom recently agreed to go to therapy with her.
Jeez.
She said, she never would until I had an illness.
Ugh.
And I said, go get your closure. You need it. No, but I was like, go get that closure. Yeah. But you need to know when you get in that room with your mom, she's more than likely not a different person than she was. She's more than likely does not have new coping mechanisms.
It's not going to be satisfying.
If she had to deny it then because it was too painful for her, then it's probably even more painful for her now, and she'll still deny it.
Terribly unsatisfying.
And I said, now when that moment happens, your closure, you're going to have to decide, is that worth being sick? Is that worth spending the next 5 or 10 years of your life like living in black and white and being miserable? Or can you say, I see you, that 5-year-old in me? Like, here's the other thing that happens. As a grown woman, like when I did that with my mom, I was like, oh, as a 30-year-old woman, I said, those words she's saying would be so painful to a child. And that's where I was able to pick up that 5-year-old and say, you know what? Like, that's not okay. No one should have said that to you. And you know what? That definitely formed certain things about you that are both stronger and weaker than other people, and it's okay.
It's great.
But, that's that, like...
Totally understand. 100%. That's a vivid way, a very lovely way of describing that. But how about my peers that give somebody a diagnosis like that and don't ask, were you ever physically or sexually abused when you were growing up? What's the matter with people?
But you know why? Because no one wants to talk about sexual abuse. No, I just say because they don't have a toolkit. What the hell are they going to do?
They don't understand how common it is. They just don't get it. My peers should be able to ask anything.
But why?
Because they're causing all those psychiatric medical problems.
But all of society is walking around with their, it's like hear no evil, see no evil, but you're making evil. Like there's a saying, when good people do nothing, evil prevails.
You're right.
Until the good people actually want to open their eyes and pay attention. And remember, a good person, like I said, I'll talk about sexual trauma, and it'll be a man who's like, I don't want to talk about it because I want to think about having a daughter. You know what? It's more likely to happen to your daughter because you don't want to look at it right
exactly
now.
Right. The scales must fall from your eyes. I have to take a quick break. Be right back after this.
Hey, I'm Adam Carolla.
And this is Dr. Drew.
And after you enjoy this podcast, how about you check out our podcast, The Adam and Dr. Drew Show.
Wait a minute. You mean we're back together again?
Oh, man.
I know. I'm sorry.
People. Like Randy and Ty. Either way, we talk sex, drugs, relationships, life choices, everything under the sun, and you can subscribe at The Adam and Dr. Drew Show for new episodes every Sunday and Thursday, completely free as well.
Only on Corolla Digital. It's like old times, good times.
We can cut that part out.
Let me quickly take a quick sidebar here. Remind people about someone I'd like them to support. This is a CW show called Containment. I love this stuff about viruses that take over the world. It is 9/8 Central, Tuesday, April 19th. There's no cure. It's coming from within, from the co-creator of The Vampire Diaries and Emmy Award-winning director of Game of Thrones. Pretty cool. It's an outbreak thriller. It's called Containment. It's a mysterious and deadly epidemics breaking out in Atlanta. I don't know why they chose Atlanta. You have to watch it to see. And there's a quarantine enforced. Everyone's families are torn apart. There are people put on two sides of a fence. Sounds very much Walking Dead-esque, so don't miss this. They're not just fighting the disease, but also the fear, the isolation, and the unknown. The virus is an act of Mother Nature, terrorism, they don't know, something more sinister that they're trying to figure out where this came from. Secrets unravel, society crumbles generally, and heroes rise. Ordinary people will defy the most extraordinary odds. Don't miss the most terrifying, highly anticipated new series, Containment. The must-see limited series event premieres Tuesday, April 19th, 9/8 Central. Catch it only on the CW. I want to remind people about Apex M, In Control Medical. Every woman at some point will experience some degree of urinary incontinence, and you go to your doctor. I know I am as guilty of this as any other physician. We think in terms of medication and surgery and things you can do. Well, now this phenomenon, which could range from a mild annoyance to a really significant disruption in your life, can be treated with a medical device. It's very simple. It's called Apex M from In Control Medical. It's proven clinically over-the-counter device that stops incontinence without drugs or surgery, and that's what I love about this product. Apex M uses this painless, gentle electric stimulation to get at the muscle groups that are really kind of, you can't feel it. You can't do it yourself. You have to have something going in and really strengthening this and working it so you get the feel for it. It directly treats the pelvic floor and surrounding muscles. Women all over the world have found this solution to incontinence caused by physical stress, coughing, laughing, exercise, overactive bladder, or some combination. So, no meds, no surgeries, and you're ready for a real solution that does not involve even pads or any of this, I suggest you try Apex M from In Control Medical. You can find their banner on drdrew.com, or you can go directly to incontrolmedical.com. Again, that is incontrolmedical.com. I would urge you, if you are someone that is troubled by this problem, the medicines are they're somewhat okay. The surgery is no for the most part. But this certainly you should absolutely try. I've interviewed physicians on this podcast that, of course, are very enthusiastic about these new mechanisms for treatment, and we have many testimonials from patients who have frankly, had their life changed by this. They're great. They're really grateful to have had the opportunity to use something that's so simple and works so well. Apex M.
Trying to remind you about our friends at TrueCar, TrueCar.com, TrueCar app. Something people don't know, you can buy a used car. In fact, there are over 500,000 pre-owned vehicles available from TrueCar certified dealers nationwide. Whether you're looking to buy new or used, you can get upfront pricing information. Again, over 500,000 pre-owned vehicles available from TrueCar certified dealers. With TrueCar, you can connect with a local certified dealer of your choosing. Enjoy a quick, easy buying experience using the TrueCar website or the TrueCar app. Easily find the car, new or used, that you want. Get that scattergram, see what people are paying in your area so you'll never pay too much. Build the car you want. That's right. You can easily find precisely what you need. Next, after you build that car, you'll check what other people are paying in your area for the same car. Now, you'll know what a fair price is, so you can be confident. Then you get a guaranteed savings certificate from a TrueCar certified dealer. And finally, you connect with a local TrueCar certified dealer of your choosing. Guaranteed savings off MSRP will be honored, and you can enjoy a quick, easy buying experience. TrueCar users save an average of $3,279 off MSRP. So, when you're ready to buy a new or used car, visit TrueCar.com or download the TrueCar app to enjoy a better buying experience. Some features not available in all states.
Welcome back to Dr. Drew Podcast. The TV show is Cougar Club, Saturday at 7 on Playboy TV. She is Psalm Isadora. PsalmIsadoraYoga.com, at Psalm Isadora is the Twitter handle. O-Yoga is there a place to go for O-Yoga?
Yeah, that's on my website, psalmisadora.com.
And do you have disciples out there in the world that are doing the same thing?
I have. So I've spent 10 years. So this is, I hit my rock bottom at 29. And, at that point I was on medication for depression and anxiety, Fantastic. Which had made me gain 30 pounds and not get out of bed. So less time with my son. And then that had left me so drained of energy that I went back to doing what I knew, which was street drugs. I'm like, since I can't get out of bed, I just need a little upper.
A little meth,
like
meth will get me going.
Hey, they're medicating me.
Why not use this stuff?
So, and it hit an emergency room where I was like, okay, I'm basically, almost dead. And like I said, for me, that was something deeper woke up in me. And I don't even know what to, maybe, whatever you want to call that, they call it your rock bottom. Or I felt like the observer or my soul was like, you know what I mean? I didn't come for this. I want more from life than this. And something in me finally just was like going to overcome that, the victim, and this is not to blame the victim, but it's like, don't get stuck there. There actually are things beyond just being that victim.
So I'm trying to get a little more specific about what's going to happen when you go do one of these programs.
So when you do a program, the way that it taps in is breath work. And breath work is incredibly important when you've had trauma because the autonomic nervous system usually has you in one of those fight, flight, freeze. So your breathing is very shallow or even frozen. And when I used to have panic attacks, my lungs would literally freeze. They'd shut down. So it's like, my lungs should be elastic. They should inhale and exhale and be elastic. A panic attack was, they just didn't move. They felt hard.
Frozen.
And it felt like I was drowning. I was underwater drowning, but I'm standing right here in front of everyone. And especially as a person with trauma, it only reinforces, you're like, oh my God, I can't even breathe. The most basic human function, I already knew I was screwed up, but now the most basic human function, I can't even breathe. I can't even inhale and exhale. There's no hope for me. And then I had a therapist I went to who was super sweet and well-meaning, but she'd be like, when that happens, take some deep breaths. Oh, yeah. Or here's a pamphlet.
Right, no kidding.
There's a
pamphlet. Take a deep breath.
I was like, when it would happen, and my lungs would lock up, I'd be like, take a deep breath, and then feel like more of a failure, panic more. And so when I found yoga, and not just the regular yoga, there's a lot of yoga and it's great. Anything's great. But I went and sought out, Tantra for me was the breath work, was a much deeper way of looking at the breath work and the brain science of the right brain, the left brain, and even and how your sexual energy tied into that. And so that's why I got fascinated, because I was like, I need to learn how to breathe. And I knew that I had to work with my sexual energy to heal it, because that was so intrinsic to my trauma. So the breathing that I started to learn, I immediately felt a relief from my pain.
Get more explicit about the sexual energy and how you heal that. What does that mean?
Meaning that I think all those years that I was going around and trying to find healing, I just didn't think anyone even understood what I was talking about, or sex was again so black and white. It was like I didn't feel the people I was talking to even perceived sex the way I did. That
How did you perceive it?
That it is a spiritual experience. And so
you thought it should be a spiritual experience?
I think it is a spiritual experience.
Now you do, but then when you were using it like a drug, it sounds like.
I still thought of it as a spiritual experience. You could do heroin and see angels.
I see what you're saying.
Okay, so and any religion really does engage in taking you to that right brain experience of feeling that kind of heavenly energy. Sex will take you there. Drugs can take you there. Ritual. So
I'm going to
rhythm.
say something again about your abandonment stuff.
Yeah.
To me, when you talk about that kind of right brain euphoria, part of that often includes a fusion fantasy with another person.
Mm-hmm. Huh? Oh, you mean becoming one with the other person?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that oftentimes that goes along.
I actually felt like for me, and maybe because I grew up in that Christian background where we would talk about the Holy Spirit, the only concept I had when it was climbing the swing set pole and I'd feel fireworks and actually see white light, I would say, oh, it's the Holy Spirit. So to me, I think it was less fusing with another person.
But I'm going to offer you something.
Then
I want to offer you an insight.
If it's an insight of that I could use that to detach.
No, it's an insight that's great, and and you probably developed something that other people don't even have because you needed it to survive. Yeah. But your dad fucking robbed you of what you really want, which is a fusion with another person. And
through the sexual experience.
And someday,
okay,
you may be ready for that.
Okay,
but with it comes the rupture too.
Okay, well, but so here's what.
This Holy Spirit's always available.
I don't think it's one or the other.
I agree.
I think that in
I
that
agree.
sexual experience, or even in the human experience, there's the level of connection to another person and that bonding, and a level of connection to some larger
Totally agree
source.
with you.
Again,
1,000%. But I think
there's
your dad
something, there's a
robbed you.
creator greater than me.
And that's always available
Right.
for you and not for everybody else. Good for you. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
That's
I
fantastic.
think that it became a crutch.
Well-
So in that same way, it's like, well, if I'm not going to have the regular bonding, I'm going to double up on, or like, and it's very true. What you're saying is, I think if I can't trust people, then I'll trust that place I can go to.
So what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that hunger might still be able to be satisfied one day with a real connection to another person. You might be open to that because you're so ready in so many other respects. You know what I mean? But I understand you don't want to be rocking the boat right now. So
Okay, I'm going to throw it back at you, Dr. Drew.
please,
So
please.
what is that? I mean, because see, the other thing that I don't necessarily think I want, and we can argue it's because of trauma or not, is I don't think I want the white picket fence.
No.
And you know what I mean?
Think you do either.
Yeah.
But I think that scares you even more, and I think you truly don't want that, right? And because that goes to some weird fucking wearing bonnets. You know, it's
Well,
like,
not even
so-
just that. I think a lot of people are living a life that doesn't
It's
excite
bullshit.
them.
Yeah, you don't want
you
bullshit.
know.
But I do have this very strong feeling that there's something there one day for you that will be very satisfying when you're ready for it. That's all. It'll be very interesting. It'll be very fascinating to put that last little piece in. And I agree, you're not wanting it right now. You don't want it. You know, no reason you have to have it. I'm not saying you should, but I'm just having this experience I keep having.
I mean, okay. Do you want me to give a little more?
Sure.
No, there's that edge, and again, sometimes I go, is this useful or not useful?
For you right now.
Yeah, for what I want to accomplish in my life.
Yeah.
So
I get
because
it.
there's the deconstruction, reconstruction
Totally get
process.
it.
No, but like even just like last night, I was making love to a new lover, and it's still it triggers all that I'm having amazing sexual energy, orgasms, and there's a moment afterwards where we're like laying there and he's holding me and said a lot of nice things that in my mind I'm like, yeah, that sounds
You
nice,
wanna get out of
but
there. You wanna get out of there.
no, it's just.
Yes,
I think
you do.
no, I didn't want to get out there, but it's like, do you really mean that? Because I think maybe if I didn't have trauma, it wouldn't be so important if they mean that. But when you've had more abandonment, it's like, don't say a lot of really nice, sweet things if you're not going to stick with it. Do you see what I mean? Because
Yes.
I've had abandonment. So it's like, it means more to me. Let's say you're like, whatever that means to like normal people.
How do you respond? What do you say?
I think I was like, we'll
What-
see. My thing is like, it takes time to build trust.
What did he say?
He's like, no, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you. So we'll see.
He's a fixer.
No, I don't think he's a fixer. But who knows? We'll find out.
if his mom was alcoholic or something. He's a fixer.
You're like, let's
Ask him.
okay.
Just find out. But
But
those guys
even-
are tenacious, but he'll drive you crazy.
But even within that moment, like he falls asleep and I was laying there and I had and maybe even coming in here to talk about it again today, but I definitely had the re-triggering of the dad emotions, and I like cried a little bit. I mean, that's orgasms are released, emotions are released. But like I said, I just try and have awareness. I'm like, and here I am having that feeling, and I know what it's connected to, and it's actually so much less than it used to be. Like we were saying, how when I notice things happening, my ability to not have to go make new problems. That's what I tell people a lot of how you see your healing is not that maybe you're perfect, but that when you get agitated or your triggers go off, are you able to sit there and feel uncomfortable without going and making a whole bunch of new problems for yourself? Because that's what I used to do.
Right. And you could be prone to that again if you get in closeness again as a way of sort of distracting or who knows what, just beating against the cage kind of thing. That's a weird image for me to come up with. Is that an image you have?
What, a beating again?
Yeah, like you were like.
That's a very interesting metaphor because the feeling I think that I get, and I am me, right? So I'm me, and I don't know what I think. Who's normal? Like I don't know, and I'm asking you. No. I'm really asking you this, and I'm not. No, I'm not even throwing it back at you. You have to understand, as a trauma survivor, your whole life you think I'm not like normal people, but that's not like. Well, what do they? What do they think?
I have trauma too.
Okay, but it's this whole project. I'm like, who is that person I made up? Maybe do they feel the same pain?
But you got a big dose. To be fair,
I got a very big dose.
But I don't normally think of images of of a little cage.
You know what?
Where'd that
So
come
the
from?
way I would describe it, and that's a metaphor. I could, but it's even more so because it's your own skin. I call it. Do you remember Breakfast at Tiffany's? And she talks about having the red hots. She's like, well, the blues are one thing, but then I get the red hots, and it's like you're burning in your own skin. So the cage is even just your own body. So again, there's not even any space. And I think
I was going to say, I have this distinct image of you in a little cage.
yeah, the feeling I think of that when it's really triggered, pain or trauma, is not enough space to deal with that pain. And then through breathing and through the yoga that I found, the exact thing it gave me, and the reason why then I was so fascinated with it and spent 9 years studying it and teach it to other people, is it immediately gave me space and a feeling of cooling. And I was like, I can't control what happened to me, but I can learn this tool or ritual that when I feel something being triggered, I can stop, do this, like do the breath work, and I immediately have a much larger sense of space and cooling.
There's great news here.
Yes.
In that you are so open and doing so well and stuff that I'm having all these experiences in your presence, and I'm sort of opening myself to it the way I sort of know how to do.
I think you're very intuitive, Dr.
Yeah, I need to hold your hand. I don't know why, but I just felt this sudden need to. So I'm just telling you that's all this stuff is happening right now.
Okay.
And I can feel the energy and strength that flows through you now. Mm-hmm. And that's very different than the cage. I don't know what that is. Anyway, what do you feel?
I mean, I like right now, I think I think, and even preparing to come in and do the interview with you, I just felt a lot of stirring of some of that just sadness, because like I said, if I could make the world that nobody experienced that, I would. But,
Does it make you sad when I hold your hand?
No.
Cause
no, but you know what? I think it actually makes me soften to feel more.
Right. Because I feel like this is what you need lots of.
There's lots of handle.
Yeah. That's not so bad, is it?
Probably not. Depends who. It depends who.
You're evolved enough to figure that out, right? Probably not the guy that wants to fix you. Just saying.
I don't know if this is the guy who wants to fix me, but
I'm just saying.
I did have that guy, and that was my husband.
Who wanted to fix you?
Yeah, and that did not.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of fixer in me too. I could get that impulse going.
You're like, if I really try. I mean, I've got fixer in me, which is why I spend my life. I mean, I think if you've been through pain, again, and see, everything I think is medicine or poison. There's food, drug, sex. Whatever it is could be used as a medicine or a poison.
Do you mind me holding here?
No, it's nice.
There's tremendous energy flowing through you. It's amazing.
Yeah, I have a lot of energy.
Yeah. Yes.
In general, that's why I say, like, some of it's from trauma. Maybe all of it was from trauma, or maybe there's
just feels like strength.
Yeah, maybe. I feel like I always had a lot of energy that I used to have more spiritual terms. Like, I really feel the Holy Spirit. But, to have the ability, I think, to connect and to have a purpose. Because one of the things that was really difficult before was feeling like I came for some special reason.
To this planet.
Yeah, but I was sidelined by my pain and my depression. And so I think, like, when I finally found yoga, or I found Tantra, I found being able to help people and be on this path and create even a whole different system. And like, as a train other women, and which I've been doing for 10 years, it's like amazing, the feeling.
Do you work with men?
I do. I don't. I work with men in a non-sexual way.
You may, of course, but you might be able to really help us.
That's
we're all screwed up right now.
Right. It's really interesting you're saying that, because I've been asked to do more programs with men, and I'm doing it on video first, because I really realized that me being in a room full of men, like, I can be in a room full of women, and I'm like, rah, rah, rah. Yeah. I feel like the general. But if you get me in a room full of men and they're all looking at me and I feel their energy projecting onto me, I can't. Yeah, for me.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's triggering my, again, like, kind of knowing myself. I'm like, that's not the right place for me to be.
There's something about
at.
this strength as a woman that men need to sort of understand better.
I think so.
We are so screwed up as men. I'm letting go now. We are so screwed up, men, today.
Well, I mean, I feel, even just on our topic, I talk all the time about women and women's sexual abuse and healing because I'm more comfortable in that space.
But
I'm
I get
a woman.
this funny feeling about what you could do for men. It's funny.
So many men have had, abuse, and it's harder for them. Because
You know what
it's
it
harder
is?
for them to talk about that abuse.
Well, you know what it is? A lot of us have been, one way or another, emasculated by our moms. Mm-hmm. And I feel strangely like that might be something you could sort of walk men through a little bit. I mean, you were robbed by your dad, which is a different thing. You were encaged or something. I don't know what the hell.
Yeah, you know what I even called it? I went back to the commune where I grew up as part of my healing process about 5 years ago, and I went and sat in the same space where all the terror and everything, I felt the physical reaction in my body so that I could I'd be like, oh, there's that feeling that happens physically.
Of course.
And I remember I called it soul retrieval. And I was
called it what?
Soul retrieval. I was writing about it on Facebook, and I was like, "Oh, what it feels like is someone stole a piece of your spirit."
Yes, he
when
did.
you in a way that wasn't fair. The power dynamic
100%.
wasn't equal.
He ripped you off. He stole.
Yeah.
Ripped off.
Why
am I saying ripped off? Is
well,
that
that's
your language?
stealing, ripped off.
No, I don't use that word normally. Where'd that come from?
I don't know.
Okay, he ripped you off.
Yeah, and you asked earlier, angry, sad, I'm all of it. Still to this day, it's like I have more and more peace about it. I've let go of it to move, or been able to say, you know what, I'm not going to get those answers there. So let me move forward into a happy future. Because I spent so many years being like, I can go back and heal that, and I can go back and heal that. And then I felt like this, and talking about metaphors, I had a moment where I realized I've spent so many years going into my garden and watering a dead stump every fucking day. And I haven't looked around at all these things that want to grow. I'm giving all that energy and the water and the fertilizer to the dead thing. And I keep saying I'll go back and heal with my parents, and I'll go back and heal. And I thought, look all around me. And actually I can be the parent to myself to say, I'm proud of you. Go live that happy life.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking this thing that whatever it is you have to offer men, I'm not quite sure what. It's, again, men that have been sort of had their penises stolen by their moms, whatever it is.
According to Freud, that's all men.
Right. That's psychoanalytic stuff, but it's men can relate to those kinds of feelings. As a result of that, you'll be able to deal with your abandonment stuff somehow. Does that make sense?
Probably, and maybe that's why it's so
and that's
deep.
why it's not time yet. That's why it's not time.
Yeah, that's why I said I am developing a program for men online.
I really want to see it. I really want
but online, which is where it's felt.
I want to see
but
it.
I'm saying that felt all right for me. But being in the room,
help us. we need something.
Yeah,
because we're getting lost in porn. We're getting lost in all kinds.
Well,
of things.
when I went to India, one of the things that fascinated me was the goddess and the sexual priestess. And I think men have a lot of shame, even though it doesn't seem like it, but they have a lot of shame around their sexual response and their erotic response.
100%.
Right? And so, because I think the whole world has cheapened sexuality. And that's really has cheapened sexuality and made it not sacred. And that's where Tantra, to me, I'm like, we have to revalue this and bring it into the light and make it something really look at it as part of, one of the most important parts of our life instead of shoving it off. Or, when people talk about it, it's in such a superficial way.
Yeah.
But so for men to actually, it's a strip club to me, bear with me for a minute, a strip club to me, go back maybe 3,000 years, that might have been a temple with a priestess. Oh. And that there's something in men to want to worship and adore that kind of sexual erotic nature in female. Right, in a more elevated form, or ritual, look what it, and it's the only place you could do that now is a strip club.
But as it is now, it's a traumatic reenactment because the guys are literally believe that girl is there for them because she likes me and she loves me and I love her. Well, and all she wants is the dough.
No, or they're there. They're going. She elicits,
or he's exploiting her.
Right, or she elicits, or both. Yeah. She elicits my sexual response. I've got a hard on. She made me feel that desire, and she's a whore. That's most of the roles.
There's that, but I think more of them not. They're more like she's there for me. She loves me. She loves me. That's where the money starts coming out, and they learn how to manipulate that feeling. And that's just a horrible. It all gets mixed up, and it's all very sick. It's all very, very bad, very sick.
Well, it's the whole planet needs a sexual healing.
Well, I'm relying on you to do that.
Yes,
So-
that's my
so
job.
with that, let's sort of wrap it up and say where can people find all these different things? Give me some specific direction. Where's this male healing thing? Where can we find that? Is that your website?
Yeah, so my website, Psalm.
What are we going to find there? What's
psalmisadora.com. I have a series called Urban Kama Sutra. So I took
these web series?
It's a membership site. So
you have to pay for a membership.
Pay for a membership, and then you have a lifetime membership to the videos. But it's really arranged as a course. So it's got places you can comment. It's a community, and I really put a lot of love and effort into trying to elevate again what this is, and I have.
Is it mostly for women? What's out there? You have
I have one for men, one for women, and one for couples. And in the couples, it's a video where the man is learning to give the woman a breast massage, and that she can actually have an orgasm through nipple stimulation from the release of oxytocin.
You just sold a whole bunch of memberships.
And it's a beautiful video. It's a naked woman, but filmed in the most tasteful way. And to me, again, let's elevate. Let's take porn, because that's the only place to go now. So that response that men have of wanting to maybe worship the sexual female archetype, you only have a strip club or porn. What if we elevated it? So these videos to me are that elevated, and you could even play it with your wife, with your girlfriend, and I'm kind of guiding them through it, giving instructions. And this woman has the most beautiful orgasm and had never orgasmed with a male partner before.
Is that
the
true?
Girl in the video, yes,
wow, crazy,
because she had never been able to let go and surrender and feel safe.
Crazy.
And then through the breathing and through really just in herself deciding she could relax and making that mental mind-body connection, she had an amazing...
Whether or not listeners fully embrace the philosophy and what you're going down, everybody can benefit from yoga and these sorts. I mean, just everybody. Whether you get into it 100% or get 2% or whatever it is, it's just like any other... Well, exercise is never bad. And this is an exercise that is sort of a connected exercise to your
And
body.
the O-Yoga is actually the PG version of those secrets. So the O-Yoga is really where you learn that PG version, clothes on, just how to, and say for a man you would learn.
Is that also the membership thing? Or is that,
that would be in the membership. Okay. But say for you, if you wanted to learn O-Yoga and how to have tantric sex, Dr. Drew?
I'm going for a membership. What are you talking about?
You would learn how to make the rhythm of your breathing match that kind of squeezing of your pelvic floor and the PC muscle, and
Makes
circulate
sense.
That energy throughout your body.
It's interesting. Well, just a quick aside. Alexander Katahakis, this will air right after hers. Is that right? And we were talking about breathing together and how therapeutic that is.
That's one of the things that actually came from Tantra. So I feel like modern science...
I think it just happens in a healing context.
Right.
That bodies regulate together, heal, their pupils go together, their breathing goes
Well,
together.
so that happens naturally, but you can take that tool, and by doing that first, have that same experience. Yeah, so just saying, if that doesn't happen naturally, then you can start breathing together, and then you will start to go into all those positive benefits.
Great. All right, Psalm Isadora, the Cougar Club, 7 on Playboy TV, 7 Saturday to 7, and then the O-Yoga and psalmisadora.yoga.com is where all this stuff is?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And you can, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Psalm Isadora and Instagram at Psalm Isadora, and I have a free gift on my website. So if you go to psalmisadora.com, there's a free gift and free videos that you can sign up.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
For call-in times and topics, follow the show on Twitter at Dr. Drew Podcast. That's DRDREW Podcast. The music from today's episode can be found on the Swingin' Sounds of the Dr. Drew Podcast, now available on iTunes. And while you're there, don't forget to rate the show. The Dr. Drew Podcast is a Corolla Digital production and is produced by Chris Loxamana and Gary Smith. For more information, go to drdrew.com.